Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a really critical and long-standing global issue, the intense rivalry between Israel and Iran.
Right. And the central question everyone's asking is, will Israel actually strike Iran?
Exactly. And the consequences, well, they could be huge, regionally and globally. So our mission in this deep dive is to sort of unpack all the complexities.
We'll be looking at the history, the strategies, military power, recent events, basically trying to make sense of it all.
Yeah, giving you clarity without hopefully overwhelming you, because this is decades in the making.
It really kicked off, or at least fundamentally shifted, after the 1979 Iranian Revolution. That's when the theocratic state emerged, openly hostile to Israel.
Okay, so just to clarify, before 79, it wasn't always this antagonistic.
No, not at all. It's fascinating, actually. Before the revolution, under the Shah, Iran supplied oil to Israel.
Really? Oil?
Yeah, and Israel provided military and technical expertise in return. It was more clandestine, of course.
But 1979 changed everything. Ayatollah Khomeini, the anti-Israel stance.
Right. Open enmity, calling for the end of the Zionist entity. That ideological break really set the stage for, well, everything since.
And led pretty directly to the proxy war strategy, didn't it? Iran supporting groups like Hezbollah and Hamas.
Precisely. The axis of resistance, as they call it. It lets Iran pressure Israel from different angles. Lebanon, Gaza.
Meanwhile, Israel wasn't just sitting back. There were alleged covert ops, right? Assassination, cyber attacks.
Yes, things like targeting nuclear scientists and famously the Stuxnet virus back in 2010. That was a big deal.
Stuxnet, aimed at the Natanz nuclear facility.
A sophisticated cyber weapon designed to cause physical damage to their centrifuges. Quite novel at the time.
Which brings us squarely to the elephant in the room, Iran's nuclear program. That seems to be the absolute core issue now.
Undeniably. It accelerated in the 2000s and has become Israel's #1 concern. An existential threat in their eyes.
Especially given Israel's own undeclared nuclear capability.
Exactly. The idea of a nuclear-armed Iran just changes the whole equation for them. And Iran enriching uranium to near weapons-grade levels, that's pushed things closer to the edge.
And the 2015 nuclear deal, the JCPOA, basically collapsing.
Right. Diplomacy stalled, so the military option feels, well, more present.
So let's dig into that. Why exactly is Iran's nuclear program Israel's red line? What's the core fear?
Well, it fundamentally shifts the balance of power. The IAEA estimates Iran's breakout time, getting enough weapons-grade uranium for one bomb, could be incredibly short, maybe just weeks.
Weeks. Wow.
Yeah. And while Iran says it's peaceful energy, their history of secrecy, undeclared sites, it breeds skepticism,
Plus, they've fortified these sites, haven't they? Natanz, Fordo.
Especially Fordo. Buried deep under a mountain, that makes a conventional military strike extremely difficult, really challenging.
Okay, so if Iran did get the bomb, what are the specific dangers Israel sees?
Several big ones. First, it could deter Israel from hitting back against proxy attacks. Hezbollah, for instance, already has maybe 150,000 rockets pointed at Israel. A nuclear Iran could embolden them further.
So less freedom of action for Israel.
Right. And Iran might just pursue nuclear ambiguity, like North Korea, having the capability, creating deterrence, projecting power without actually declaring or testing.
That ambiguity itself is a threat.
Definitely. And beyond that, you risk a regional arms race. Saudi Arabia, maybe Turkey, they might feel they need their own deterrent. That's a nightmare scenario for stability.
And it's not just the bomb itself, is it? It's Iran's wider influence.
No, absolutely not. Israel's worried about the whole picture.
Yeah.
The IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and its network of proxies, they essentially encircle Israel.
Hezbollah in Lebanon, militias in Syria and Iraq.
Exactly. All capable of targeting Israel. And, the October 7th Hamas attack, while maybe not directly ordered by Tehran, really hardened Israel's view of this Iranian-led axis, aiming for its destruction.
Which explains the ongoing intelligence operations, like Mossad stealing the nuclear archive in 2018.
That and the alleged assassinations of key figures. It's a constant shadowy conflict alongside the more overt tensions.
Okay, let's flip it. What about Israel's side? What capabilities make a strike even conceivable?
Well, Israel has a very potent military. The Air Force, the IAF, is top tier, over 350 combat aircraft, including the F-35 stealth fighters, crucial for getting past defenses.
And their intelligence is Famously effective.
Right. So capability-wise, a strike is feasible, but as we said, the specific targets, especially the buried ones, make it incredibly complex.
We've seen them act before, though. Limited strikes, mainly in Syria.
Correct. Mostly hitting weapons shipments heading to Hezbollah, but recently things have gotten much more direct.
Like the Damascus consulate bombing in April 2024.
Yes, that was a major escalation. Killed a top IRGC commander, Zahedi. 16 people died.
And Iran hit back. The big
Yeah.
drone and missile barrage on April 13th.
Over 300 projectiles. Most were intercepted, thankfully, by Israel and allies like the US, UK, Jordan.
But Israel responded again, hitting Isfahan on April 19th.
A strike on an air defense site near Isfahan, it was seen as a message, we can get through, showing capability without causing mass casualties.
And then Operation Days of Repentance in October 2024. That sounded bigger.
It was significant. A large-scale airstrike, reportedly involving over 100 aircraft, hitting around 20 Iranian military sites, air defenses, missile production facilities. 4 Iranian soldiers were reported killed.
What was the signal there? Aerial freedom?
Pretty much. Demonstrating they could operate over Iran when needed, these actions together suggest Israel is testing defenses, calibrating responses, maybe trying to establish deterrence.
But hitting Fordo,
Yeah.
that's a whole different level, right? Bunker busters needed.
Absolutely. You'd need serious bunker-busting bombs, like the US GBU-57. It's unclear if Israel even has those, or enough of them.
Plus the logistics. 2,000 kilometers away. Mid-air refueling.
Major challenges. And you need overflight rights from neighbors, like Saudi Arabia, which isn't guaranteed at all.
And even if a strike worked, it wouldn't erase the knowledge, would it?
No, that's the crucial point. It would likely only delay the program. Iran has the scientific know-how. They could rebuild, maybe faster, maybe more covertly.
Okay, so given all that, what drives the calculation towards striking? Why now, potentially?
It's this constant risk-benefit analysis. The biggest factor pushing for a strike is Iran's nuclear progress itself. The shrinking breakout time, the growing stockpile. The window feels like it's closing.
Netanyahu's been warning about this for years.
Consistently. And Israeli public opinion, while maybe split on acting without the U.S., generally supports preventing a nuclear Iran. About 68% support a strike, though only 37% if the U.S. isn't on board.
What about the proxies? Does Israel feel like they've weakened Hezbollah and Hamas enough recently?
That's potentially part of the calculation. The 2024 operations did hit Hamas and Hezbollah hard, and the alleged assassinations of Nasrallah and IRGC General Nilfer Shah in September 2024. If true, that could make Iran seem less able to retaliate effectively via proxies.
And the broader region. Syria's instability.
That plays into it too. If the Assad regime, an Iranian ally, weakens further, it could hurt Iran's influence and maybe expose its air defense network in Syria. Losing some Russian S-300s in October 2024 didn't help them, though they're reportedly seeking S-400s now.
And domestic politics in Israel, Netanyahu's position.
You can't ignore that. There's pressure from hardliners like Naftali Bennett, who's pushed for hitting nuclear and energy sites. And after the failures of October 7th, 2023, projecting strength is politically vital for Netanyahu's survival.
Okay, now the flip side. What are the biggest breaks on this? The constraints.
The biggest one is probably U.S. opposition. The Biden administration has been very clear, urging restraint, opposing strikes on nuclear or oil sites. They fear a wider war, energy shocks.
What about Trump?
Yeah.
If he returns.
His stance is less predictable. He pulled out of the JCPOA, but also sometimes talks about diplomacy. Still, the bottom line is a sustained Israeli campaign probably needs U.S. support, logistically and politically, and that support isn't there right now for a major strike.
And the regional fallout. Iranian retaliation.
Huge risk. Direct missile strikes on Israel, attacks on Gulf oil infrastructure, destabilizing the whole region. Even Saudi Arabia, despite fearing Iran, condemned Israel's recent strikes. They want stability.
Plus, Iran might just double down on the bomb after an attack.
Exactly. It could backfire spectacularly, make them absolutely determined to get nuclear weapons covertly, accelerating the program. And they have allies like Russia and China providing lifelines, that 25-year oil for security deal with China, for example.
And what about diplomacy? Those U.S.-Iran talks resuming in May 2025.
Well, they offer a slim hope, but seem stalled. Iran wants sanctions relief, the U.S. wants tighter limits. A total collapse could actually push Israel closer to acting unilaterally, ironically.
It really feels like things have heated up recently. Can we talk about those specific events, October 1st, October 26th?
Yeah, definitely a period of heightened tension. Iran's October 1st, 2024 missile attack, Operation True Promise 2, was their second direct hit on Israel in 6 months. Retaliation, they said, for assassinations of Haniyeh and Nasrallah.
And Israel's October 26th response,
Oh.
the biggest strike on Iranian soil since the Iran-Iraq War.
That's what reports suggested. Targeting air defenses, missile sites, it marked a real shift to more overt, direct confrontation. Very significant.
Then the leak of U.S. intelligence about Israeli strike plans.
Hmm.
That must have strained things with Washington.
Undeniably, it exposed preparations and likely caused friction. Around the same time, you had debates in Iran's parliament about maybe revising their nuclear doctrine, some openly suggesting weaponization.
Israeli military drills simulating strikes in April 2025.
Mhm. All signs pointing to increased readiness and tension. Meanwhile, diplomacy to revive the JCPOA is basically on life support. De-escalation efforts by the US, UK, Germany seem to have limited impact as both sides focus on deterrence.
So let's game this out hypothetically. If a full-scale Israeli strike on nuclear sites did happen, what are the likely consequences?
The fallout would be immense. Regionally, expect major escalation. Iranian missiles on Israel, possibly hitting cities, attacks on U.S. bases in the region, proxies like the Houthis, Iraqi militias joining in, maybe hitting Gulf states too.
Economically, oil prices.
Likely to spike, even if oil facilities aren't directly hit initially. The sheer instability would disrupt markets, hurt Gulf economies, impact global trade.
And the nuclear program itself.
Paradoxically, it might accelerate. Iran could decide covert weaponization is the only way forward. Huge proliferation risk.
Diplomatically, Israel could find itself isolated.
Big risk. Alienating allies, even Gulf states who crave stability above all.
And domestically. Inside Israel and Iran.
In Israel, success might give Netanyahu a boost, but failure or heavy retaliation could erode support fast. In Iran, despite discontent, an external attack could rally people around the regime, at least initially.
It's clear the world is watching nervously. What are the different global viewpoints?
It's divided. The U.S. urges restraint, but also provides defense support, like deploying Thaad missile defense to Israel in October 2024.
Europe.
France, Germany. They condemn escalation, push diplomacy, but their influence is limited.
Russia and China.
They oppose military action, back Iran to some extent, Russia supplying drones, maybe S-400s, China providing economic support. They push for talks based on mutual respect.
And the regional players.
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia, Qatar.
Walking a tightrope, condemning Israeli strikes, but desperate to avoid a direct conflict with Iran themselves.
UN, IAEA.
Monitoring, reporting. But they can't really prevent escalation if the main players are determined.
Okay, so after looking at all this history, strategy, capability, the recent heat, we come back to the big question. Will Israel strike Iran? What's the verdict based on everything?
It's just incredibly complex. No easy answer. Israel has a strong rationale. Stopping a nuclear Iran is seen as vital. Recent ops show they have the capability and maybe the will. Weakened proxies, Syria's chaos, Iran's exposed defenses, Netanyahu's pressures. These all point towards maybe.
But the hurdles are massive.
Absolutely. U.S. opposition is huge. The risk of all-out war is terrifying. A strike might not even eliminate the program long-term. Iran has powerful allies, and it could just push Iran to weaponize faster. These are enormous deterrents.
So where does that leave us? What's the most likely path?
Well, the diplomatic track looks pretty weak right now. Given everything, the most likely scenario perhaps is more limited strikes, like October 2024, targeting military sites, maybe enrichment infrastructure, aiming to delay and degrade the program, send a message, but trying to stay below the threshold of full-scale war.
A full-scale attack on Fordo and Natanz? Less likely.
Possible, but much riskier. It would probably need a green light or at least passive support from the U.S., and Israel would have to be ready for truly severe consequences. It feels like a step too far right now, unless something drastically changes.
So it's this high-stakes balancing act between deterrence and disaster.
Exactly. And the situation as of today, May 1st, 2025, it really hinges on those nuclear talks, U.S. policy under potentially Trump again, and how Iran responds to everything.
A truly precarious situation. It's been incredibly valuable digging into all these layers with you today, really unpacking the complexity around whether Israel might strike Iran.
It's a situation with so many moving parts, constantly evolving.
Definitely. So as we wrap up, a final thought for you, our listeners, considering this long, bitter rivalry and the current landscape we've discussed, What do you think is the most likely long-term outcome here? And are there factors we maybe didn't dive deep enough into today that could end up being decisive, something to mull over? Thanks again for joining us for this deep dive.